each one. So there'll be some new jobs involved. And the workforce, they are going to have job fairs and hire local people and train them. That's one thing we're trying to encourage to do, all local as much as they can, but they're working with Kellogg Community College. Have contacted them, they contacted the economic development about job fairs and putting on job fairs in the community. And they're hoping that some of these people they can train and we'll go on to them to the next field that they're producing. I don't know if it'll be another one in the state or not. But this will definitely be the largest field in Michigan. So it's quite interesting, to say the least. I don't know, my family wished I could talk about anything but solar panels. It's been my life for about 4 years now, 4.5 years. Are there any questions you have?
So I know that you had made mention, the old hotel, that's on Michigan Ave as you're coming in from 94, that's being transformed for
The gym is going to be storage,
storage.
and they're going through that. That's Casey Merrill doing that one. The Starlight across the road from it, a person from California had started, took out the permits. We're in the process of getting that one taken down. In the last 4 years, or almost 5 years now, we've had, I think, 8 houses and 2 barns taken down. The one you probably noticed the most is the one by Ketchum Field, the house and barn that were across the street there. The property on West Michigan, we took it back from the county and we gave it to Anderson's, and they're gonna take it down. They've already come out and got the building permit to tear that one down. That's that little gray structure on the south side of the road. And we've got 4 others that we're starting the process on. It takes about 6 months to go through the court system, to have them condemned and destroyed under our dangerous building ordinance. So we're actively working on that.
And I know that you had presented this information to us at the EDC, but I thought one of the great comments that you made was like, after this is all said and done, it's in the contract that these companies have to restore the properties.
Yes, one of the main things, and we started working on this ordinance when I was chairman of the planning commission over 9 years ago. And one of the biggest thing is the decommissioning bond, and they had to agree to it. And most of them, it's around $5 million. They have to put up a bond up front. Some of them a little bit more depending on the size of the field. But Fleece and Vanderfleet, which is a large engineering company out of Grand Rapids, has come in and taken soil samples, core samples. They've got aerial photographs and photographs of the property itself. And they have 1 year after the date of decommissioning, or if they cease running for a period of 3 months, then to put it back to farmland. Right now, the zoning has been changed on it from ag to light industrial, because they've applied to the state to be recognized as manufacturing. But that will go back because it's just a conditional use. So when the panels leave, it'll go back to agriculture. The farmers in the areas are excited about it. I don't know what you know about farmland, but it normally leases for $100 to $150 an acre for lease. If you lease your farm out to another farmer to plant, they're paying anywhere from $600 to $1,300 per acre per year. Or if they buy it, they buy the property for 3 to 4 times the current property value. I think they made a public announcement finally that Tomac Woods, their last one will be after September 23rd. And there's several other properties they bought. Ranger Power has bought almost 60% of the property involved in it. And that map, if you look at it, Ranger Power goes from 30 Mile all the way across the north side of 94 to 26 Mile Road. And then Albion goes from 94 straight south around Kellogg Community College campus, a small portion of Star Commonwealth, all the way down to Division. And then they come within 1 parcel of the city limits on your west, and they go all the way to the Township line. The Pine Gate is on 28 Mile Road only, and that's what would be the old Wise Local Farm. Primarily Beverages and several of those just north of Rice Creek, up till H Drive. But I do know they're negotiating some other properties, so I don't know where that's gonna end up.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. Can you repeat back to me the total economic impact analysis?
I can give you a copy, and I'll leave it, it's public knowledge.
Thank you.
So I'll leave this here with the mayor and your Haley, and you can make copies and present it. The other companies, we didn't require this one. This is what they tried to present to us to influence us to go ahead and accept it. But the other one, this is 50 megawatt. And that's enough to run a city the size of Albion easily. And the other's 150 megawatt, and the one's 25 megawatt at this time. And the fourth one is expected to be right around 100 megawatt, or maybe a little bit larger.
You mentioned the job creation. When approximately are the jobs going to be open?
I can't tell you for sure. It depends on what the job is, but they're gonna start construction, start working in September.
Okay.
So they've been working with I can't think of her name, the Albion Economic or Albion Center. Well, the one lady works with her.
Oh, Christine.
Christine Bowman. They've been contacting her and working with her to set up a job fair, and all of them have agreed to set up a job fair and maybe use the local as much as we can. George Gray is working on doing some catering and taking the food right out to them, which actually the solar companies are excited about. So he'll be setting up and quite involved in that, and he's excited about that, being able to provide food for the 900 workers could be here at one time. I don't know how they can get that many here at one time. They all want to start at the same time, but I think push is going to come to shove. They're going to be dragged out. So I expect this to be dragged out for 5 years, to be honest with you. Particularly if we go to the fourth and fifth one, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Ford? So this is huge, huge infusion for our community, not only with, what they're gonna create, but the fact that you're gonna have these workforce needing to stay, needing to eat, our businesses, definitely gonna see the impact as well. So, Mr. Porter, we thank you, even though your family probably wasn't happy about the time you had to spend on this, but the community of Albion thanks you for your hard work and bringing this all together for us.
Should be huge. I've been contacted in different grocery chains and stuff, and I haven't got any firm commitment yet. We're trying to get them to come in because what we have now won't handle it.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is if they don't spend their money here, it doesn't no good at all.
Awesome. Right, any other questions or comments? No? Okay, so we'll go on to our presentation for the Maynard Costerisan audit.
Perfect. Well, good evening. Can you wave if you can hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Well, good evening. I'm Bill Tucker from Maynard Costerisan. I'm here tonight to present to you the audited financial statements from December 31st, 2020. So I will share my screen with you. I do have obviously the audited financial statements I'll put on the screen, and then I do also have an audit presentation that I put together tonight for you as well. So I'll go ahead and try to share my screen and see if we can get this to work. Let's see, the host is disable participant screen sharing. I don't know if that is an option to be able to turn that on. All right, give it a try now. There we go. Let's see, it's working. Share this screen right here. All right, perfect. All right, so as mentioned here tonight to present to you the audit financial statements from December 31st, 2020. And that is this document. It's in total 125 pages. That includes all the necessary financial statements to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and then the note disclosures to go with those financial statements as well. Would like to take a second and thank Tom and the rest of the staff for their courtesy and cooperation throughout the audit process. The audit actually did go really well this year. Again, I think there were a couple things that we were waiting on related to a couple actuarial statements related to the pension and other post-employment benefits that kind of held up the process a little bit for the audit. But overall, the remainder of the field work went really well for us in 2020. As I flip over to the audit presentation, I'm going to put this in full screen mode so everybody can see that. Get a little bit cleaner. All right, so the first page that I'm going to turn to in the audit presentation outline is an overview of the independent auditors reports. The independent auditors report is on pages 1 and 2 of those bound financial statements. It goes over the purpose of an audit. So the purpose of an audit is to give an opinion as to the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's not to detect fraud, and it's not to give you an opinion on your internal controls. Within the independent auditors reports, we're providing our opinion on your financial statements. We're actually giving you our opinion on the 11 opinion units of the city. Those 11 opinion units are the governmental activities, the business type activities, the aggregate discretely presented component units, each major fund, in which the city had 7 major funds in 2020. Those were the general fund, the Albion trust, the major street fund, the MDOT street construction fund, the street improvement construction fund, the sewer fund, and the water fund. And then the last opinion unit is the aggregate remaining fund information. We're providing unmodified or clean opinions on all 11 of those opinion units. And that's the best opinion you can receive on your financial statements. And that means that everything is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So again, that unmodified clean opinion on all 11 of those opinion units. From there, I'm going to turn to page 13 of the financial statements. Page 13 of the financial statements is your statement of net position. The statement of net position at December 31st, 2020 is presented on the full accrual basis of accounting. This includes all of your capital assets, your long-term debts, your net pension assets and liabilities, and your net OPEB liability as well. As you can see on this page, I've highlighted a couple of those numbers here for you. The ones that we want to kind of go through and discuss just a little bit further on the next couple pages. So your net pension asset and liability, and then your net OPEB liability. So you'll see we have a net pension asset, 9.2 million, net OPEB liability, 264,000. We have a net pension liability, which is the second highlighted number down here at the bottom. Those two highlighted numbers in total is about $1 million. So you'll see those on the next couple pages. So the next page that I want to go over with you related to that net pension liability. This is that net pension liability of approximately $1.8 million. This pension plan is with MERS. And it is sitting at 87% funded. So obviously very well funded plan. You can see the trends over the last 6 years on this plan. Started off as a net pension asset at 106%. And that slowly has gone down over the years since 2014. So I guess, one thing to just kind of discuss with you on this page, just kind of, obviously you see that decrease. You'll see on the other one, your pension assets for your public safety officers. But 87% compared to a lot of other municipalities within the state is actually really good. So what we're seeing on averages across the state of Michigan is about 75% funded is really the average on these plans. So again, you guys are above that curve. Obviously, that has gone down over the years, but you're still above kind of the trend of other municipalities. Moving on from there, we'll move to your public safety officers retirement system, and that was that net pension asset that was on the statement of net position. So this is a net pension asset of approximately almost $9.3 million of an asset. As you can see, this plan is very well funded as well, sitting at 162% funded, and you can see the trend on this one over those last 6 years, staying, or 7 years actually on this one, staying very healthy over the time of the last 7 years. And then the last item to discuss is your net other post-employment benefits plan. This is sitting at a net OPEB liability of $264,353. That is funded at about 13.21%. So this actually one is a little bit below the curve of what we're seeing other OPEB plans across the state. So if I set an average for that, I would say it's closer. It's actually been going up quite a bit over the last couple of years. It's getting close to about 60% funded on these plans. Used to be 40 just a couple of years ago. So people are starting to put some dollars away for their other post-employment benefits. All right. So from there, we're going to go into some more of the financial statements. This is your governmental funds balance sheets presented on the modified accrual basis of accounting. So this is the basis of accounting that you're budgeting at and you're more used to seeing. So when you get reports from Tom and the finance office, you're getting the reports on your fund level presentation. So we're talking about your general fund, your far left column, and then also on that modified accrual basis of accounting. So
Share what page you're going.
I'm sorry, did somebody have a question?
Yes, what page are you referring to?
Oh, this is page 15 of the financial statements. Sorry about that. Okay, so page 15 of the financial statements, your governmental funds balance sheet. This is a snapshot of your assets, liabilities, the deferred inflows, resources, and fund balance at December 31st, 2020. On this page and the next page, we like to focus on your general fund, the far left column, as that is the main operating fund of the city. So at December 31st, you had total fund balance of $1,569,615. That's the second number up from the bottom. With portions of that fund balance that are considered to be non-spendable. So that's the fifth number up from the bottom for such things as prepaid expenditures. So you've already expended those dollars out, leaving you with a assigned and unassigned fund balance of $1,315,115 that is available for expenditures in future periods. So that's the third and fourth number up from the bottom added together. That dollar amount represents approximately 29.5% of your annual operating expenses. And that is up slightly from last year. Last year is about 27% of your annual operating expenses. As a minimum, what we'd like to see in that assigned and unassigned portions of fund balance as a minimum is 15 to 20% of your annual operating expenses. So you guys are above that. And again, that did increase year over year from 2019. Moving on from there, I'm going to turn to page 18 of the financial statements. Page 18 of your financial statements is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the year ended December 31st, 2020. Again, focusing on your general fund, that far left column, we'll start off with your total revenues. You had total revenues in 2020 of $554,420. That was an increase of approximately $103,000 or 2.32% compared to 2019. So we did see an increase in your revenues, specifically in your intergovernmental revenues. Those were up about $259,000 as a result of some COVID relief funds that came in during the fiscal year. So obviously that started in 2020. We'll again see those going forward in 2021 and probably 2022 and potentially further into the years than that as well. Moving on from there down to your total expenditures. You have total expenditures of $4,407,034. That was a decrease of approximately $82,000 or 1.84% compared to 2019. So the largest fluctuation that we saw within your expenditures was related to your public works expenditures. We did see a decrease in a couple of the projects that were going on. So in 2019, you did have a street light upgrades to LEDs in 2019, and also a parking lot project as well. So a couple larger expenditures in 2019, and then obviously didn't have those again in 2020. Results for the year, third number up from the bottom, you added to your fund balance in the dollar amount of $131,905. All right, from there, I do have a couple graphs and charts for you, just give you a visual perspective of some of those same numbers and just kind of give you an idea of where you're at. So again, focusing on that general fund, the blue is your revenues and other financing sources. The purple is your expenditures and other financing uses. And then that orange line going across the middle is your fund balance, or that component of fund balance. So even though, we can see that 3 out of the last 5 years, your revenues have exceeded your expenditures. But really, the thing that, I've really paying attention to on this one specifically is that fund balance and where that's been at over those last 5 years and staying very, very consistent, as an overall fund balance for the city. Again, through positives and negatives in each of those years, but really, you've really kept that really close to about the same percentage for all those years. All right. Moving on from there, we'll look at the composition of your general fund revenues and expenditures. So the top chart is your general fund revenue detail. Making up the largest component of your revenues in the general fund is your intergovernmental revenues. So this is your state revenue sharing and any federal dollars that are coming out in, and that makes up 35% of your total revenues within your general fund. Slightly up from last year. Again, last year is about 32%. Again, that COVID relief dollars came in, and that would have impacted that percentage. Moving down to the bottom chart, your general fund expenditure detail. Making up the largest component of your expenditures within your general fund is your public safety at 50% of your total expenditures. Pretty consistent with last year. Last year is about 51% of total expenditures. All right, last couple pages for you here. So this is page 116 of the financial statements. So page 116 is your summary of your audit results. So this is a really great page just to kind of turn to and just be able to see kind of, things that went on during the year. So this starts off with your financial statements and talks about that unmodified clean opinion on those financial statements. And that is, again, on those 11 opinion units of the city. From there, it gets into that next section, which relates to your internal controls over financial reporting. So we did identify material weaknesses and significant deficiencies in your internal controls over financial reporting. So that is at the bottom of page 116 and then goes on to page 117 as well. So I'll talk about those couple items very shortly with you as we kind of turn the page. The next section that this gets into relates to your relates to your federal awards. So in 2020, the city did expend greater than $750,000 of federal awards, therefore requiring what they call to have a single audit. So through the single audit process, we do look at those federal dollars and the programs that those dollars are coming in for. And the one that was selected as a major program in 2020 was your Community Development Block Grant, or your CDBG grant was the major program in 2020. So for that program, we do go through the compliance requirements set forth by the federal government, and we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in that program. So good, again, a good clean audit for that, that single audit, provided an unmodified opinion, and then no deficiencies noted for that one program. So the last section here relates at the bottom of the page, 116, relates to your financial statement findings. So the first finding that we have for you, this is what we consider to be a material weakness in your internal controls or financial reporting. It relates to material journal entries proposed by the auditors. So we did have a couple entries that were, of material dollar amounts that we proposed. Those were material journal entries for the proper recognition of unavailable revenues and transfers were proposed by the auditors. So those, again, those were material dollar amounts that we were bringing to management's attention, and they subsequently recorded those in the general ledger to get those financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. All right. The next comment that we have for you, this is at the middle of page 117. And it's referred to as 2020-002 internal control over credit card use. This is what we consider to be a significant deficiency in the internal controls or financial reporting. So during our testing of the credit card controls, we noted instances in which the city's internal controls were not followed in practice. Specifically, during our review of credit card purchases, we noted instances where supporting receipt documentation was not retained. So again, that's your policy is to retain that documentation and have it available for audits. And again, if it's not there, there's nothing for us to look at to support those purchases. And obviously, it doesn't follow your policy as well. The last comment that we have for you relates to tax disbursements to local units of government. So during our testing of accounts payable, we noted instances in which the city did not disperse tax collections to taxing authorities within the required number of days of collection. So you're required to disperse funds 10 business days after the 1st and 15th of each month related to those tax collections. And we noticed as we're going through again through our accounts payable that those transactions were not timely during that process. All right, and that is my last comment that I have for you, and I'll stop there, open up for questions, and stop sharing my screen too.
Any questions? I think this was a little information overload. So you have to take some time to digest this 140-page document. So we do appreciate you being here this evening to kind of go over the top points that we need to be made aware of, and I'm sure that our city manager will, take the necessary steps to make the corrections that are, called as a liability.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so did we decide that it was, going to the proclamation or? Okay. So we need to have a proclamation created for the funeral service of Joe Domingo. Councilman Williamson was gracious enough to be able to be there that day to read the proclamation before those who were in attendance. And I want to take a moment to also read it for the public. So the City of Albion proclamation in memoriam for Joseph Domingo, Mayor. Whereas Joseph Domingo was born in Albion, Michigan on December 9, 1952, to Joseph and Mary Domingo, where he served a lifelong resident. He served in the United States Army National Guard for 20 years. Upon retirement from the National Guard, he served as a City of Albion employee from November 18, 1991 to June 20, 2008. And whereas Joe Domingo served as mayor of the City of Albion from December 1, 2008 to December 5th, 2016, and was well known as Mayor Joe. And whereas Joe Domingo's service as mayor was distinguished by his founding of the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council, supporting Albion youth to serve as junior mayor and council members. And whereas Joe Domingo was instrumental in instituting the Collaboration Corner Park in cooperation with Albion College. And whereas Joe Domingo was dedicated to championing numerous city and community-wide organizations, for example, generously donating from his pocket to support youth programs such as travel to Albion's French sister city, Noisy-le-Roi and Valley. And whereas through his visionary leadership and collaboration with community leaders, the City of Albion has seen transformation and economic growth. Whereas on behalf of the citizens of Albion, we express our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for Joseph Domingo's invaluable service to the City of Albion and our residents. Now therefore, City Manager Haley Snyder, joined by myself, Mayor of Albion, council members Vicki Clark, Lynn Reed, Nora Jackson, Marcola Lawler, Linda Lanu, and Shane Williamson, do hereby extend our deepest sympathies and condolences to the family and loved ones of Joseph Domingo. All right, so we will now turn the floor over to our Albion College representative, Dr. Barkley.
I'm not sure how to PowerPoint. So I was at, we had decided to put this on the agenda with a fairly short window, so I apologize for not being able to get significant materials to you beforehand, but we did share a memorandum. And I've shared with Haley, the city manager, the PowerPoint. And so that's under the short time frame. Under the short time frame we will provide additional materials downstream. Okay. So should I, is this the clicker here or?
Maybe.
I think that was.
If not, I'll click it for you.
Yeah. I don't think it's. Oh, is that me? Okay, so I'm gonna hit first of all, I wanted to introduce two colleagues who came along with me in case we get questions that are outside of my swim lane. So Gary Black, the Chief Financial Officer, who came on board close to the same time I came on board, and Mark Newman, our new Vice President for Advancement, come along in case there's questions that we need to talk about that are more of a financial nature. So I'm going to hit highly on a few context items, and then we'll really dig right into the parking and road closure questions, and then we can talk about next steps. So let me see here. There we go. May need some help. So when I came on board, I was asked to really understand the capital projects. Those were both pertaining to building and infrastructure, as well as roads, parking, and so on from some of our competitor institutions. And unfortunately, Albion College is significantly in the rearview mirror of many of our peer schools and the schools that we have overlap competitor applications with. And so as part of that, and part of the reason why I'm here and others are here, is to help move Albion forward in terms of the development of this infrastructure. And so if you go to the next slide, if I can ask for some assistance. Part of that reason is the college is really under spec in terms of its depreciation and deferred maintenance, both on infrastructure and land as well as its capital. So if you look at the red line, you can look at the age of facilities of the campus. And then if you look at the upper and lower bounds, you can sort of see here the age of the facilities of many of our peers. So if you've noticed, there's a lot of stuff happening. And what we're trying to do is double dip and work smart. We're trying to be efficient. So we're trying to attack some deferred maintenance needs and infrastructure needs and physical plant needs, but also try to think about some new construction. And many of you are aware of some of those efforts, such as Washington Gardner. So you're not going to be able to read these, but I'll just say that a couple of things that drive our campus comprehensive plan. One of them is our real attempt to address accessibility and have a welcoming and belonging and equitable environment. We have lots of issues around access on the campus. We're really thinking about how to really do away with steps, really think about how we construct our programs and our approach to residential. So a lot of what's in the campus master plan is driven by that principle primarily. It's probably, I can't say one's more important than the other, but it's definitely a major driver. The other is to really facilitate synergies with the local community, but also regionally. A third is transdisciplinarity. That's a fancy term for basically saying that we want our curriculum to be more stakeholder-based, and where the questions and the problems are driven by the community and not necessarily the college. So when you take on those kinds of approaches to your curriculum, there's some reconstruction that oftentimes has to happen in the way that facilities are constructed, or the way in which you might approach how you outfit a lab, or even the way in which you approach how you construct an instructional contract for a given set of courses. Because indeed, you may have a course that's taught by a community partner as well as a traditional faculty member in the same course. The fourth is inclusiveness and intentionality about the way that we bring about synergies between our campus constituents and affinity groups. And the last is resiliency and sustainability. Resiliency is really about how we construct our approaches to our capital planning, our grounds, our landscaping, that allows us to think about water use, think about flooding, think about how we deal with climate change and energy, as well as then more sustainable principles. I'm not sure. Okay. So this is our current campus construction. So we sort of got an athletic core, then a residential core, academic core. There's this perimeter that's a little bit like a limbo space. And then you see Washington Gardner and then the downtown area. What we're really trying to do, go to the next slide, is create more hubs. And those hubs will allow us to have more exchange and interplay in the way in which our campus is structured. And so you can see here that with the Washington Gardner effort, Munger with Summit Point going in there, some partnerships we worked through COVID with the county health department and other hospital conversations that are happening now. We're trying to create sort of a wellness and arts frame in that region, and then create some new academic initiatives, both capital as well as programmatic in our core areas, create more vibrancy frameworks, and then spread residential across so we can drive more traffic into the downtown and other parts of campus, help to bring more students into the downtown, which we hope will drive commerce and development there, and improve customer traffic and foot traffic in the downtown for the community. But also make ties to the Ludington the Ludington building and what we're doing around the bank in terms of some of those sorts of applied strategies that I talked about earlier. So you can see that in this framework. So if you look to the left, Ludington, the bank initiative, how we're trying to drive residential life down that way, you can sort of see broadly some of that strategy there. and really for lack of a better term, amortize the residential experience across the campus and not just in certain hubs or certain communities or certain neighborhoods. Next. So this just gives you a little bit more insight into that. You can see some relationships. We have some proposed buildings on the left that we're cleaning up Kresge, we're investing money there. Wrestling will go in there. We're still continuing to we want to break down those walls along the side of the Dow. Really, we think you make a horrible statement about the integration of the campus and community, not that in the campus. We're also trying to think about what the rail expansion and the safety issues, what that's going to mean for the foot traffic on the campus and the transport, the car movement. And so these are just excerpts from a broader plan, just to give you a feel for what we're trying to create here from a programmatic advantage. Next slide. So if we go to the road closures, so this is some of what we're trying to, some of the drivers. So accessibility is probably the big one. Where we locate, how we allow students to move in and out of buildings or certain spaces. Safety is another sort of a sub bullet on the safety is really, we're still in limbo and not really clear what MDOT's going to do around the railroad crossings. The city manager and I have a meeting with MDOT in a week or so, and hopefully we'll hear more about what their intentions are there. Obviously, everybody knows that the rail drives right, comes right through the middle of our campus, and we've had some issues with accidents and other issues over the years there. So that we're trying to telegraph what we think they're likely to do, but we really don't know until they start to really articulate what their strategy is there. So some of our campus comprehensive plan will be influenced by most likely what we're going to learn over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Sustainability, wellness and health, good neighbor enhancements. We really know it's been a problem, especially over by Wesley. The parking in that community, we want to improve that lot over there and get students out of the neighborhood, but we want to do that a lot of places. Part of what we're trying to do with closing down some of the parking in the streets is improve the open space and recreation and vibrancy in the campus, as well as sustainability. And then we're really trying to align with feasible zoning and infrastructure priorities of the city. So the city manager's team and my team meet bi-weekly. What that infrastructure plan, when that comes out, as well as the EDC's plan, that will likely influence some of the polishing and finishing touches on our plan. Because the more that we can align what they want to do with roads, what we want to do with roads, the better off we'll all be and be able to fund that and improve our city. So if you go to the next slide. So I just got this zoning map. So I'm in the process of going through the draft campus plan and figuring out what's mixed use and what's not, because I'm fairly new to the city. So some of what was in the plan before I really got on the ground here may not quite jive with some of the zoning expectations. And I'm starting to get educated on what some of the agenda is around zoning. But where I have circled are areas we have purchased and owned that will likely be parking and longer term parking as for instance, as many of you know, have closed a few of the streets in our interior. So some folks are like, well, you're just going to push parking out beyond the campus into the communities. We're taking a variety of measures to not allow that to happen. I can't say that there won't be a transition and some issues, but our goal is to really isolate parking in areas that are mixed use, that are not residential, and that are natural parking. So if you go to the next slide, thank you. So right now on the campus, if you look at this sign, part of the reason for the road closures, many of you may be wondering, is you can see that we've got just this massive bisection in the middle of campus here in that left picture. And we know that the rail is also going to influence some of the throughway in the community, in the middle of our campus community. So where you see the dotted lines, and this is a little older, this has been cleaned up, but it's the best I could do last minute while we're in progress. If you look to the right here and you look at the dotted lines, you'll note there's Perry Street or the Jackson Street. So those are targeted as part of our community plan in terms of closure. And I think there's a view that the parking that's been lost there is much bigger than what it really is. We had a net loss of 76 spots. Perry only had about 15 spots. Most of that is easily accommodated by current parking, but as I noted, we bought a large number of lots that will accommodate much more than that, frankly, as we clean those up and get them prepped. So there's not really much that's gonna be closed, depending upon what the railroad does. We have these because they've talked to us, these circles down here about the crossing. We don't know if we're gonna have to spend money and have flyways. All that's still up in the air. But the majority of closings, with the exception of the Oswego, little Oswego section between Cass and Perry, we've pretty much addressed most of the closings we have intended, unless rail shuts down some crossings. And then we may have some other opportunities to make some other changes. If you go to the next slide. So a couple of things we're doing. So we're working on approaches to internal student transportation to improve and support longer term parking in adjacent lots. We actually are turning over our fleet. We know many in the community have complained about some of the grounds, John Deere carts and such. We're really trying to, as we have an opportunity, as those leases are running out, and turn that fleet over. We're hoping to move to quieter, more sustainable transport, and we're hoping to allow students to use some of that transport, actually. The other things that we're doing is we're looking at policies and we used to have a policy that didn't allow first time in college students, freshmen, to park on the campus and to bring their cars. So we're looking very seriously at reinstating that policy, which would cut a significant number of cars down on the campus, unless there's special considerations are held. We're also working with the chief financial officer about tiering. So for instance, some of these lots, instead adjacent to the campus, we're hoping to push students out, but we know they're not going to do that willingly. So we're looking at some different tiered pricing. Parking is an important revenue source for us, but we know to get habits changed, we may have to supplement and incentivize some of that. And so we're looking at a tiered approach, and I'm working with the chief financial officer on that and modeling that. And then obviously other special incentives and perks about being green and tying it into sustainability and hitting students in areas that they care about. Next slide. And this isn't a comprehensive list, but it's the majority. I know this is going to be hard for folks to see, but we have, where you see the yellow are either parking areas we've targeted and already purchased or owned, or areas we can expand into. Some of them, which you don't see, are out in the equestrian center. We have lots of opportunity out there. We have 550 acres out there, but we're really trying to use some of the, as I noted, the mixed use lots that we already own here in town. We believe the students will be more likely to use those if they're just a few blocks from campus. This will continue to get worked on as we get the final plan out, but you'll see more of this, just to give you a feel of the overview here. Go to the next slide.
Dr. Barkley, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
What is the difference between I can see what's identified as parking, but the other colors?
So those are buildings that we own or are thinking about developing. And so really the main key to look at is the yellow, green, and gray. So either targeted removal or existing or new. And then when you see the larger plan, the color coding for the buildings, this isn't really the focus of this slide, but you would see that in the broader plan as that comes out in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
I have another question too.
Oh, there's another question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I see that you have like the plans. Are freshmen being told not to bring cars this year?
It'll be starting next year.
Okay, so with that in mind, with some of the parking spaces that have been, especially the I'm speaking specifically about the Jackson Street parking area.
Yeah, yeah.
Really in my area, and I get
Yeah.
the traffic about that. You know, every fall, even when that parking lot is full, multiple streets are full of cars.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what are you doing this year to try to mitigate that, knowing that if those students are displaced parking, where are they gonna go?
Right, so most likely, we're going to try to move and direct, we're starting to direct students into other lots. There's several lots that aren't optioned or And so we're going to have some stronger enforcement on the campus about where students are, and we're hoping in conjunction with you folks that you'll have stronger enforcement in the community, and we're fine with that. And we do have a lot that's underutilized and others that are going to come down later that can be used now, but are frankly sitting empty. So we know we have the parking to accommodate if we didn't buy one lot where we are now. We hope to push that. It's when, as we remove other lots downstream, that then these other lots become more important. If you go to the next slide. So I'm just going to run through these really quick, but this is an example where a lot would go away, right? What we want to do is create, this is a drawing just to give you an idea, but we're restoring, we're putting a roof and getting ready to restore this, and we're going to put an outdoor amphitheater. This will be a place the community can use and others, and put on outdoor plays. The goal will be, there's lots right there. This isn't going to happen tomorrow, but over the next year or two, but those lots will go next year or so, those lots will go away. And that's where that other parking that we purchased or trying to restore and put some security around it. And they'll need to account for this parking when it goes away. This is more substantial parking. If you go to the next slide. So these are some of the lots. I'm sorry, this is probably the only high priority road that we really lot closure example that we have left. And this is the Oswego route here. I'm working with the city on that now. But I think in the near term, I believe that is the only other road that we're looking to close there, and it is not a road that is highly used, and we're not cutting off anybody in terms of the thoroughfare through there. And then you can see on the side of the church some of the other parking, and you can see how much it's used. There's some other parking that will eventually go away. If you go to the next. So these are some lots we own. So we bought this lot over on Monroe Street. It used to be another company there that was recently torn down. We are having the environmentals done now. We bought that lot for a few different reasons. One is for short-term parking remediation, but in longer term, as we see how the Washington Gardner project fares and develops, this lot as an adjacency will be important. If you go to the next slide. This is a possible prospective lot that we could use. It's down at the end of Huron. We're basically storing facility stuff down there. It's cleaned up. And we could use that lot. If you go to the next. This is a lot we own behind, adjacent to the hotel. It's not used at all. And it's usually empty. We could use this lot if we need overflow.
Are you talking about next to the Marriott?
Yes, it's basically between Porter, it's on the corner of Porter and Clinton. You have to know that lot. If you go to the next, and we own this lot that we could potentially use for parking or temporary if we needed it.
That's
So-
directly, can you go back to the last
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Is that directly across from the Isman House?
Across from what?
The Isman House? I'm just
I-
trying to. remember.
I'm not, because I'm not as familiar with some of the.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it
That
Isman
lot that
House?
sits behind Charlie's.
I think so, yeah, both Charlie's, the restaurant, and the Isman House, I think currently use that lot when they have events. just for
Charlie
your-
owns their own lot.
Yeah.
My dad owns his own lot.
Right, that's, yeah, that's, okay, so that's on the side, and then that's what Audit Isman House uses, just for your awareness.
Okay, so if we keep going on, and so I was just trying to give folks a feeling for the properties we own and have owned for years or have recently purchased, where if we needed overflow and really needed to push students to long-term parking, we can. We know this will be a transition year. We know we will have a few hiccups and some issues with some student training and some cultural shifts, but we really expect that our parking strategy will be in full effect this next year. And that's why we've limited any of the closures to really minimal and things we can accommodate pretty easily. But we know we'll have to work on some student behavior. If you go to the next
Back at
slide.
Barclay, where was
Yeah.
that one located?
This one is Cass Street, the corner of Cass Street, Marion. So if you go to, and these are all mixed use, and I've assessed these ones for sure, and many of them are parking lots already. And so it shouldn't be a problem. If you go to the next slide. So comprehensive master plan, campus comprehensive plan, excuse me. We're supposed to get the draft. I've been interacting with our architecture and engineering firm on the plan over the last few months. Since I've gotten here, we've been iterating that. They are supposed to get a final draft to me in the next week or two. And then I'm also supposed to receive a comprehensive landscape plan that really serves as an addendum. And then I will share that with the community at large. We are creating a capital planning site. I will have a feedback. I'm looking for constructive feedback, not just, over the transom lobs, but then I will try to shop this with you folks. We can talk and have a session on it with others, the EDC, anybody else who wants to meet as a small group for me to solicit feedback. And we'll take that seriously. And then once we integrate that feedback, and we also have our own internal campus governance mechanisms that I will have to work that through, where I will be getting feedback. And then we will make those edits and iterations, and then we will share that with the Board of Trustees for adoption. And then we will move to an infrastructure and energy plan that I'm hoping as the city continues to develop its, that we get some congruence, and that will allow us. And so just as a point of reference, I shared with the city manager about 6 roads that we would love to get cleaned up. And there might be opportunities for shared funding of that cleanup. And so we're open to that. And because it fits our needs, it fits yours, and it's sort of a win-win. If you go to the next page, and then we have a strategic plan happening in parallel. And so these are the steps that have been happening. I'll be doing interview, ideation, or focus group sessions. We've been doing a lot of ideation sessions, which are basically people, many stakeholders getting in sessions and giving us feedback. Blue sky stuff, brainstorming, problem identification, which is more around programs and what we're trying to accomplish at the college and how we're doing. And then we'll begin to iterate that plan and then move that for at least certain sections of the plan for Board of Trustees review. And then we'll move to a more tactical and operational plan budgeting framework in January and May. So I'm trying to be really transparent about what these processes are, where you have input opportunities. I will be reaching out to folks, but you folks can reach out to me and or folks on the campus and ask to take part in a session or do an interview, and I'm happy to try to make time to do that and get feedback. So that's it. That's kind of in a nutshell. So I'm happy to take questions. I may not have all the answers right now, but I'm happy to take questions and go from there.
Thank you, Mayor Snyder. I'm curious, I guess, just to give any ideas, because I think over the span of, college, town relations, the whole notion of student behavior and student training has been something you've heard advocated for. So I'm just curious, any, ways you're planning to do that?
So I oversee facilities and the grounds crew. Even my own grounds crew has a really hard time with how students manage their garbage, deal with recycling. And so I'm hoping, right, so many of us are new. So we'll try, you can see how much I've sort of got on my plate. So we're trying to move as fast as we can. But I've met with my team. I've talked with the Vice President of Student Life. I want my grounds team to be part of the training. I mean, I want the students to see faces. I want them to understand when they throw a piece of garbage on the ground that the guy walking behind them or the woman walking behind them is a real person and is gonna have to pick it up for them. And so we're gonna try to do more training on really some fundamentals. And I think parking will be part of that. I think how we manage garbage will be part of that. I think how we treat our neighbors will be part of that. It's not gonna happen in 2 minutes, but the Vice President of Student Life is very interested in his RA team. And RAs are those folks that run residential life. They're all very interested in partnering. And they want the students to be better citizens. And I think if the students are made aware, most of them want to be better citizens as well. So I think that's some of the goal.
That's awesome. I think the whole notion of putting a face to these issues is really important. And I know the other item that we're discussing today, M99, we've heard, some of the safety concern is just distracting people walking across the road. So that was also in my thought process of how can we work together to make sure we are ensuring safety.
I did, and just for the group, I did share a memo around M99 / some of the stuff we talked about that I shared with the council beforehand. Like I said, if we would have had a week or two, I would have tried to do it sooner and more, but you can get a copy of that. I think there's been a bit of a misnomer. We are not, clearly, we're not anti-parking. I think the issue has been, we know we need to train students better, but we need some vehicles in order to do that. So for instance, in that memo, it would be great if we could have 2 lights, and then we would work really hard to make sure our students are not crossing at other spots. But we need more than one pipeline into the campus for Weston, right? So it's that sort of stuff, I think, if we can work together better on, we'll take the responsibility on of doing a better job training our students. I mean, I think we're very committed to that. And I mean, the folks that are here, I mean, we've got really a whole new team here of leadership. And so we don't have all the baggage. And so we're happy to, and I can't be responsible for what people did or didn't do before. But you can hold us accountable. I said, I'm doing this stuff and I'm in the middle of doing it, and we'll continue to do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you, Dr.
Good,
Butler.
yes, thank you folks for inviting.
So we're now on to public comments. So if we have anybody in chambers that would like to speak on agenda items, you're more than welcome to come up, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. No,
Yeah, Garrett Brown, 1016 South Superior Street. So I'm assuming that he was on the, Dr. Barker was on the agenda, so I'll speak to that. I guess the one question I had, I noticed after the storm, when I was coming back into town, that Perry Street had been removed. And I know that in the past, when the council renamed Hannah Street for the former president, that went through council. And I do look at the agendas and things. I hadn't seen any action that was taken to do that. So I had sent a message to the manager, my council person, the attorney. I hadn't heard anything back yet. I just want to know, is that something that the council has to approve? Because again, that's removing a part of the physical infrastructure of the city. So I was just curious about that, because I think that's something the council, especially with the plans that are being discussed, should be involved with in terms of approving when it comes to the public parts of that. So if someone could provide an answer for that later in the meeting, I'd appreciate it. And I do support the plans, especially, hopefully if the school can be constructed on Washington Garden as well. But that was my question, just what was the process, and did that have to, or did that require council approval to remove the street?
There's Terry Ott on 919 North Ionia. I own Marinos at 1009 East Michigan Ave. I'm here again trying to urge everyone to vote for the parking on both sides of Michigan Ave. I sent all of you pictures of exactly why parking on only one side is not a good idea. Just the other day, there was 12 cars parked across the street. We had one of them at our shop, the other 11 were at the college. So that would be completely taken up. I was watching the council meeting from 621 where Brandon Maurer was talking about the expenses of this. And at that time, he said there would basically just be a maintenance cost and the marking of the lines to solve this problem of parking down through there. I hate to say that this really is not a safety issue for down through there, but it really isn't. At any intersection, basically all you really have for pedestrian crossing is the traffic light. That's usually what it is. They already have one down there. And I personally don't think there's anybody that's ever driven down Michigan Ave that has not had students walk right out in front of them against the light. We've all had to stop. Not a problem. We're the people that are keeping the students safe on that, at that intersection and along Michigan Ave. It's not the traffic lights are doing, it's not going to be a buffer lane that's going to do it. It's going to be the people that are driving down through there to decide to stop and not run kids over, as they should. Not run them over, I mean. So it is the people who drive down through there, you all of us that drive down through there, we're the people that are keeping the students safe. It's not the traffic lights, it's not a buffer lane. And I also want to say too, that parking has had nothing to do with anybody getting hit on Michigan Ave. I know about Professor Seeley who was hit and where he was crossing and the direction of everything that was going on there. And he did come, the person that hit him came from the west to the east. There's no cars parked over there. So parking was not the issue. It's a horrible thing that happened. But parking cars was not the issue there. Now I know at the last meeting, everybody heard from a lot of people from a lot of different precincts and they all told everybody what they basically wanted and they were all here for the same thing. And that was parking on both sides of the street. I don't see how this could possibly be an issue. It solves everybody's problems. If you don't want parking in front of Wesley Hall, no parking signs take care of that, same in front of the president's house. But it also makes everybody happy down through there and gives one lane of traffic down through there. On our block up there, because we've had parking on both sides all along, it's actually been a very safe area for the accidents. The majority of accidents that happened on Michigan Ave have either been at Clark Street or down by Superior Street in that area. It's not been up in our area where we make the traffic go down to one lane. So I'm hoping that everybody hears, from what everybody said in the council votes to get, for what they're asking for. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Matthew Seeley, 310 Baroque Street. You heard from me last time, I'll try and keep this one with less profanity. Apologies. I think that from what we heard last time, that it does, as long as it's uniform, I think that's what counts. So if it's parking on both sides of the street, I mean, it sounds like that might be a good, safe option. I guess I'm just here to advocate that whatever happens, the speed of cars needs to be some way regulated, monitored, that someone can be in the middle of a crosswalk in the middle of the day and get hit by a car going full speed as, I don't know, it's crazy. So I'm just, again, asking, whatever you do, just have it be uniform and look at ways to just keep cars from speeding around each other and not paying attention to who's walking. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you all. Next, so now we're on to our consent calendar items. Do I have a motion to approve the application from Albion Mill?
So,
That's support.
Second.
See if I can do that.
Councilmember Lee,
Consent calendar.
Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
yes,
Clark, and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Okay, approval of the Beckett and Raeder proposal for the comprehensive master plan update.
So moved.
support,
So yeah, just there.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the city of Albion, we released a request for proposals for all kinds of consultants to assist us in updating our 5-year comprehensive master plan. The response deadline was July 28th. I have assured we received 2 proposals from one from Beckett and Raeder and the second from Envision Group LLC. After reviewing them internally with myself and Director Arnold, we have recommended that Beckett and Raeder, they demonstrated an understanding of the scope of work And also not to mention, they recently worked with the city to update our downtown development plan, which was approved at the beginning of 2020. So they're familiar with the city's planning issues and our needs within our community. So we are recommending that we approve or utilize Beckett and Raeder to help assist us with the update of our 5-year comprehensive plan. The estimated cost, the project not to exceed $39,006. I'm happy to share that the city of Albion, we submitted a grant application through MEDC RRC for $30,000 in technical assistance to go towards this project. Our application was approved, so we do have that funding coming to assist us in the update. So this just requires a local funding of $9,000. So it's cut the local match drastically. So I just recommending approval for Beckett and Raeder.
Question for City Manager Slater.
So how would, I know you got many applicants, so how would you pinpoint and come down to this group?
We reviewed the packet that they submitted. They provided backgrounds on all of the staff that they have on board. They also provide references for local communities that they have also assisted. So we looked into all of those as well and taken that into consideration.
So we only had 2 proposals, correct, or 2?
Yes, we only received 2.
Councilwoman.
Thank you. I read through all the detailed plans for their tasks, and I'm excited to work with them. I would like to be a part of the steering committee. I think that we should have a designated group here on the ground locally to help us in this. In this way, it's a very pivotal time, and so I just wanted to offer to volunteer in that way. I really appreciated them saying they would take in special considerations, specifically to reach underrepresented groups. And I think that's going to be really important. I also just wanted to note in task 5.2 public review, they mentioned the need for the public to have a chance to review the final document before it is instated as our comprehensive plan. I recall before that was a 90-day period, and so I just wanted to make sure we are working within the timeframe that we need to stay and have the plan approved by February.
In the proposal, we have provided them with a 6-month timeframe, so that puts us to be able to submit our comprehensive plan in time for the state deadline. So they're well aware that this is going to be an aggressive process. So we are happy that they are willing to assist us with this. Just to speak on the steering committee, I just want to remind council that the updating of the comprehensive plan, this falls under the planning commission. So they will be the board that is spearheading this updating process. So they will designate a steering committee from that commission to work with Beckett and Raeder exclusively. But however, we will be reaching out to the EDC as well as some of our other stakeholders in our community to make sure that they are on board and included in this process. So I just wanted to reiterate that the main board or commission that will be working closely with Beckett and Raeder is our planning commission.
Councilwoman.
I have a follow-up question. It just says here the formation of the steering committee is representatives from the elected officials. So that was why I was offering it.
We do have council members that do serve on our planning commission, so they will be able to assist in that.
Councilwoman Reed, did you have a question? Any other questions, comments? City Clerk Rita?
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark, Reed,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. So we're on to our approved proposed M99 reconfiguration option. This has been a lengthy conversation to figure out what's going to be the best route for our community in regards to what MDOT wants to do for Michigan Avenue. Something that I just wanted to remind folks that it's not the full stretch. of Michigan Avenue that we were talking about. It's only the stretch from Ionia Street to Mingo Street. So even though the renderings that we keep getting are for the full Michigan Ave, it's only within those blocks that we're talking about. So, yeah, kind of, I see Councilman Waller doing this. There's just- So that she's trying to envision what we're talking about. But, you know, kind of like what people keep saying, we want to keep safety in the forefront. We want to make sure that it's uniform in whatever we do. City Manager Snyder has put in what her recommendation would be. I agree, you know, I talked to council folks to try to figure out how we're gonna proceed with this, and looking at that segment of Michigan Avenue that we're looking to make a change. For a good majority of it, there's no parking already on the north side. So we're talking about what's in front of Wesley, what's in front of Washington Garden. So that, I mean, if we did the parking on both sides, it wouldn't be uniform. We know that there is a need for parking on the south side because those residents do not have the driveway. Now, I know we've talked to Mr. Ott, you know, trying to figure out how can we be accommodating if we went this route. So I know that we're been in conversations about possibly expanding your parking lot in the front, possibly giving you specific spots across the street that are just for your business. But we have to come to that point where we need to make a decision. So,
So that means you,
yes, Councilman.
so that means you're not, you haven't gave him a plan or anything like that about expanding the parking in front of his, business for people to be able to park. You haven't answered that question. You haven't given him a definitive answer that he could do that.
I know that they're like, Ian and City Manager Snyder are working with him. If you want to kind of give an update, or if Mr. Ott wants to give an update.
I have Director Arnold, if you want to step forward and share.
You tell me when I can speak, I don't want to swing out a turn.
So Director Arnold,
Yes, so talking about
The parking, expanding the parking infrastructure in front of marinas.
Yeah, so I sent an email to Mr. Ott this afternoon, right at about 3:30, explaining what our ordinance allows for front yard parking, and classifying it that way because as I understand his lot, which I'm open for arguments or different interpretations on, the primary use of the lot is still considered residential, and the salon is classified as an accessory use. And that's the most in keeping with what our zoning ordinance requires. So he's allowed to use up to 50% capped at 120 square feet of his front yard area for parking, so long as he puts down what we define as an improved parking surface, improved driveway. I think is what the ordinance says. It's 82-63 or something. I can send it your way. But 6 inches of gravel, or I don't think it gives like a depth requirement for asphalt or concrete, but it has to be like a reasonably normal parking material. So if he wants to look into more than just laying down a parking surface in accordance with that part of the ordinance, then that's a conversation that he and I should definitely have in depth, because there's broader implications for making changes structurally to the parcel due to some prior non-conforming features of his parcel, if that's clear.
How many parking spots would that create?
It does not, our ordinance does not specifically. It's got to be 9 feet wide. And I think it requires 180 square feet. So I haven't done the math on exactly how that would break down in his lot. I've not been out there to measure it. But I would, my roughest estimations, just based off of having driven by a couple times, would be 5 to 6.
Do we have any questions? Yes.
In general, I guess I'm not aware how, the current, composition of this roadway cannot be retained as it is, to have the least impact on residents. I personally feel, that this was not handled well in terms of our ability to convey what is required, what is needed, what is most safe. If these conversations have been happening since the fall, then we could have already had a plan in place, as Councilmember Clark says, to convey how everyone who was affected, because Mr. Audit is not the only person affected by this, would have the designated parking that they need. So to make this change, which I am aware it is a safety hazard that is overdue, the traffic markings and the street signs should have been there all along, so I understand the urgency behind this. But to radically alter people's lives because of this, when, like you said, there's really very little parking on that side. We're talking about a small area that parking is still needed for. I don't understand the need to change the current composition of the roadway.
Councilor,
I agree with her, and for people who have lived there all this time, I really don't think that they should have to change their whole lifestyle just for a little parking. And plus on top of that, I know me myself, I came into town the other day, and as I came in and was going on down the street, you tend not to pay too much attention because the street's okay, it doesn't have a lot of holes and things. So I'm coming down the street, so I looked up and I saw ahead of me on the other side an officer. And then I looked down at my speedometer and I'm going 40, not 35. And so, you know, there should be something put up to remind you of how fast you're going, or either the fact that the speed limit is, and maybe those signs should be made bigger or in a different color or something, so people will take notice of what that speed limit is, and you can then adjust. And when I saw that, I just got to put off the gas and came on down. But I think part of the responsibility is up to the person driving and to the city posting what needs to be there, or officers around there or something, until people get used to doing what they're supposed to do, including me.
yeah, the issue is, I think, kind of what we're talking about, the safety is people don't pay attention to the speed signs. It doesn't matter if it's on Michigan Ave, if it's on Beverages Street.
Need an officer there a lot to write tickets up what you have to pay. They get hired, so that they'll begin to know they can continue breaking the law and getting away with it.
If we could get officers, more officers, I'm sure that would be a nice fix.
It all depends on-
Councilman Williamson.
I wanted to offer, if we're not gonna take the city administration's recommendation this evening to do parking only on the south side, and there's a couple things in this recommendation. I tend to agree with Councilmember Lemieux about the disruption this may cause. One thing that we have learned, though, throughout this process is that things need to be marked. And the problem with Michigan Ave, the parking is on both sides, is that it's really not marked that way. And so what's happening is people are, you know, that when someone turns left, someone's speeding around the other person in what would normally be the parking area along Michigan Ave. And because it's not marked, people don't follow those rules. In addition to that, downtown, I think, and again, I can't speak because I haven't seen the data on this, but the buffer zones around the parking have been incredibly convenient for accessibility. So when you mark parking and then have those buffer zones, it makes it safe for people to get out of their vehicles. I think one of the things I would hate to do is just, while it's probably easier and less contentious to leave it just the way it is, and I agree with you on that, I also would like to offer, can we at least get it marked for parking if people are allowed to park there? That way people understand, I know as a driver, I'm not supposed to drive in parking spots. It's not a parking it's not a drivable lane. Can we do something that does increase safety by at least marking it? So that we, you know, tell drivers where they can and cannot drive.
With speaking with it, the whole purpose of this reconfiguration is to be consistent throughout the entire roadway. To where we have parking at some sections, then it's no parking, to where there's parking and then it's no parking. So whatever option, they want to be consistent along the entire roadway. So if we do parking on both sides, as Mayor Steiner already stated, currently along the north side, there's a lot of no parking right now. So if we do parking on both sides, we're adding parking to where there's currently no parking, which is fine if that's what council wishes to do. But what their plan is, they would like for us to be consistent. So just not picking and choosing where we offer parking, whether we allow it all along that roadway or we don't. That's what we need to decide.
So it'll be parking in front of Wesley.
Do you mean from Park Street down to Superior?
No, Ionia to Mingo.
Ionia to Mingo. Where? Ionia to Mingo. Councilman Clark.
So Austin Street has the same exact thing, they have parking and non-parking down Austin Street, and NDOT did that, and it's still the same way. And there's no signs up anyway, because I made sure I wrote it today before I came in here to the meeting. There's not one no parking sign all the way down that street. On either side. So, just like Councilman just said, nobody really knows what you can do or can't do down that street, because there's nothing, except for those white lines, those solid white lines, and most of us don't even know what those solid white lines mean. So the city has some responsibility in this as well, as what they said, because if this is something MDOT has been pushing, that's one thing, I understand that, but the other side of it is, we're not doing our jobs either, and Austin Street is clearly an area where you can park, and nothing is worked, go down, one way or the other.
Yes, Councilman Waller.
That's not consistent.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. So if I had a choice, two choices, I would say to leave it as it is and put some markings down. If I had to go with, one of the choices, as my precinct stated, it's about them. So, even though some people in my precinct do go to, Marinos to get, services there, the people who have spoken, and, I would go with 2B. Either leave it like it is or 2B. Parking on the south and no parking on the north.
Yes. When I proposed resolution language for us to vote on today, I was told this is not the day that we will be deciding every single detail about this project, but rather what City Attorney Harkness will draft for us to have a final decision on the resolution. Is that correct?
Correct. When speaking with Attorney Harkness, we need to make a choice first, before MDOT proposed one option, so that's why it was, easy to draft a resolution, because we already have the option presented to us. So once the option is selected, we can then draft a resolution to include some of the language that you did present.
So you're picking your option tonight, but that option will be embodied in a formal resolution at a future date. The problem was we couldn't draft a resolution when we didn't know what the resolution was. I mean, hypothetically, there was no solid direction, from a majority of the council members, so we couldn't draft a resolution and then do a 180 at the meeting. So tonight is decided an option, it'll be reflected in a future resolution that the council will also vote on, but you will be deciding your direction tonight.
Councilman.
I move for us to move forward with the configuration that MDOT provided for us on page 85.
The parking on both sides.
With the buffer lanes.
Support.
So if we, I just want to make sure, we're parking both sides all the way down between these streets. Both sides, all the way down, parking. Okay. Any other questions?
Did you say parking all the way down?
From,
I own it, where is it? Because I'm.
It's right next to Albion Auto across from the street, or it's not, VIII and Albion Auto Mart. That's right. I appreciate the clarification. I recognize, as you both said, that there are plenty of areas where there currently is no parking designated. And our understanding, Mr. Allen's done extensive research on that, is that even with designated parking lanes, you can still say this is a no parking area. It doesn't have to like have an X even through it. You can just have a no parking sign. And I think because it is a college campus and these are people's daily lives, that just because you put a parking lane in doesn't mean all of a sudden people are going to start parking there. I'm just trying to understand that concept.
from my understanding, if we do anything that's not uniform, it's an extra cost to us.
I'm not proposing it be uniform or whatever, lacking uniformity. It's just a matter of the habitual patterns of what's happening right now and allowing that to be maintained. With the added safety of actual traffic markings and street signs that are currently not there.
So, like, yeah, again, so if we go, like you said, we're gonna do the parking on both sides, and then you decide you wanna have no parking in certain areas on the north side, it's gonna be an extra cost to us. Am I correct? Like if we do signage and other stuff like that, for the no parking and.
Well, you indicated there's no parking currently, so is there currently signage there that says that?
I don't. Is there?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
So then I mean, I've reached out and asked if there would need to be additional signage, and I was not told anything at this point. I think that the recommendations that the college has outlined was providing bump outs, which I don't think was part of MDOT or the city's plan at this stage in the configuration.
Yes, Councilmember.
Okay, when you get past Wesley Hall, there's no parking from there on down.
On the north.
I don't know what the street is by Wesley.
It's Baroque.
It's Baroque.
To Huron, Baroque to Huron on the north side.
Okay, so you got Wesley Hall and then the street right down from there, then on down in front of the president's house and on down, you know, on the street park. Okay,
It
that's
goes
what
all
I
the way
suggest
down.
it stay at.
It goes no parking from, on the north side of
So
Borough. It's already no parking there.
the problem is that once we do have traffic marking lines, then that ultimately changes the potential outcome of who could park there. That's what we're saying, because as soon as there's lines, people could park there. But if there's no parking signs, then
Yeah, Councilmember.
This could offer a really great opportunity for the entities, business, college included, that if there is the potential for having designated parking just for the business, this gives that business an opportunity to partner with the city to either own or help take care of some of those parking spots if necessary. And I think the same opportunity for the college is there. If they don't want certain areas for parking up and down the street, this provides them a great opportunity to work with the city. If they want some no parking zones to help maintain them, providing more resources to then take care of Mission Avenue and eventually rebuilt. So I'm okay. I support Councilmember Lanu's suggestion of doing this because I think it only provides more opportunities for the city to partner and bring more people into the conversation if we need to designate more places, or if we need more blinking and flashing at crosswalks, or if we need to put in an eventual traffic light. I think this is probably the simplest way to get through this particular process, and then we can send it out to zoning and planning and to public safety with the various entities that want to either designate parking spaces or not have parking spaces. This provides them the opportunity to partner with the city in that capacity.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you for those ideas, Councilman Williamson. I also just want to acknowledge that due to the fact that this is an overdue safety concern by not having the traffic markings, MDOT has said that if we make this decision and get the information to them by September, they would be able to do this fall. So I think that as much as we all wish we had more research and, had thought about those business opportunities, we do have to make a decision. And I think, the engagement is critical, but it also is, we're at a turning point right now. And then also just the fact that there are residents on both sides of the street between Baroque and Mingo who would be, their lives would have to change as a result, and it would radically change their ability to have family gatherings and utilize their property. And we've had residents say that their property values would be decreased as a result of that. So I don't think we have the justification at this stage to warrant that level of change.
Yes, Councilwoman.
So is there a problem with leaving it as is?
Well, I wouldn't, oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Can I respond? I don't think we're leaving it as is because we have to have traffic markings. So that already increases the safety of the roadway by having any traffic
We
markings.
need to have those lines so that drivers are aware.
The original plan, we can't put the markings down.
Yeah, that's what page 85 is.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I just want to kind of provide a point of clarity. Page 85 shows that they would have parking up and down this entire region, parking spaces drawn on the pavement with a buffer zone, a 4-foot buffer zone, and then with Keith Michigan at a 2-lane, which will, at least from what I understand, slow down traffic, because to turn left, you're gonna have to slow down. I think we'll find out what that will do to traffic, but I am interested to see, especially if it works in slowing down people going through Michigan Ave. That's the proposed change. And so basically from Ionia to Mingo would be parking on both sides of the street, outlined, and then 2 lanes in the middle for driving east and west.
Are we good? Okay. City Clerk Domingo.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Alright, so approval of the Commons Plan Equipment Maintenance Agreement renewal. Miller?
So this is just a renewal of the contract we have every year with Cummins to service and maintain the city's various standby generators, and facilities. So as you can see, there's 8, $6,000 a year. And that's a full service, parts necessary, load bank testing, anything major is an additional cost.
We have questions for Director Miller.
Has it been moved and seconded?
No, I do not have a motion to support.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Approval of the water meter reader replacement? Oh, where you sit down.
Just so I can say that up. Okay, so the water department has to read all the meters in town. They have an electronic way of doing that. That's what the little black button on the outside of your house is. They have a device that goes around with every one of them. It relays that back to a computer. The computer gets brought back to City Hall. It docks at the water billing department, and that is communication with Lindsay Collins, the water billing clerk, and that's how water bills get generated. The current unit we have is quite old. I think it's a 2006. And it is no longer serviceable. We can't get parts for it. We can't get technology for it. We can't get service for it. Matter of fact, the last time the batteries died on it, I had to search and finally buy some from a different vendor on eBay. So the company that we go through, they've been recommending that we replace this for a number of years now. We never have. Ours is several models behind. The one that I'm recommending to you is the newest model. To me, that makes the most sense. It'll last us the longest. This proposal is for the base that communicates with the computer that they take out in the field with them, and then the handheld unit that reads on each house. That also includes all the training, all the technology software, and updates we may have in the future.
Questions for Director Miller? Did I have a motion to approve this? Motion to approve? Second? City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
Clark, Reed, Lawler,
Yes.
Linnell,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Approve council members 2021 convention registration, city manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, I'm sorry, just as a point of clarification, these approval items, supposed to be a motion to approve, a second, and then discussion.
Second.
I'll be back to the thing he was talking about.
For point of information, we are asking the approved council members from MML convention registration.
So do I have a support? Okay, thank you, I can hear you, sorry. City manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So at the last meeting, several of you expressed interest in attending the 2021 MML convention. We've looked into this further. The dates are September 22nd through the 24th. The early registration is $449 per person if we do this before August 23rd. The conference will be held at the Amway Grand Hotel in Grand Rapids, and it is $164 a night. So we're looking at roughly $950 per council member. This does not include mileage reimbursement, so we will have to keep that in mind. With a total cost of $2,850 for all 3 members to attend. So you are wanting to send you guys, I recommend approval.
So do we enroll ourselves or do you enroll?
We'll take care of that for you.
So we have Councilwoman Reed, Councilman Williamson, and then Mayor Pro Tem Jackson. And then I would suggest maybe looking at also creating a line item for next year's budget. If more want to go next year.
Yeah, we do have a training and conference line, we just now will need to just budget more for next year. So there will be a budget amendment to follow this approval.
Any other questions, comments? City Clerk Domingo?
Oh,
sorry,
yes,
Councilwoman.
I just had a comment. I spoke with Councilmember Reed about this earlier. We're talking about the budget amendment next, but I thought it was odd that we didn't have enough for all council members to be able to go. And then if we're already making an amendment for this, if we wanted to attend any other training or bring somebody in, I just want to take into account like the larger scope of training needs for the council. Just as a comment, that's all.
Yes, Councilwoman.
So is this so that certain members can go? How many can go?
We're not putting a limit on how many can go. At the last meeting, only 3 of you expressed interest in attending, so that's what the number that's presented tonight is, just based off the 3 shown interest, but it's up to.
You might want to check with Councilwoman Jackson when she gets back, because she had talked about it too, but she had asked me about the conventions and how they are, and they are very helpful. You look online and you don't see all of the things that are offered, but once you get there and you see all the things that are offered, they are really worth going to.
Yeah, so this is for taking into consideration that you want to go, Councilman Williamson wants to go, and Pro Tem Jackson wants to go. Yes.
So I would make a suggestion that the budget be corrected, because whenever there's training available for any of the council members to go, there should be allocation available for council members to go, and there shouldn't have to be an adjustment issue. It was my understanding when we went the last time, that the money was available, so I'm kind of confused why it's not available now.
It's not that it's not available based off of previous year, what, we budgeted 2,500, so we'll just need to increase it by 1,500 to cover this training.
So I'm making a suggestion.
Yeah, you should.
That it be increasing the budget, that it be looked at, that should be a line item, that's increased.
Ms. Raeder actually just said that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
City Clerk Domingo.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed, Lawler,
Yes.
Lanu,
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to approve the budget amendment. No, the budget year, yeah, request amendment.
So moved.
So this is just, it's just to increase the training and comprehensive appropriations in the city council's 2021 budget, so we're looking to increase our training fund by $2,000 and then the conference by $1,500. Those changes for $3,500 increase.
We good with that?
So if there was any other, training that came available with this additional?
For this year or?
It just depends on how much the trainings cost. But yes, we have added Dr. Needs raising this there.
Just, I know some of you weren't here when we did the budget, and just so everybody understands. You know, we're going through the general fund budget, and there's probably, I couldn't even guess, you know, maybe 1,000 line items that we're budgeting for. And when you get to different line items, you know, things like this are broken down, there's probably 15, 20 different organizations that are offering training throughout the state, throughout the country, you know, somewhere. I mean, they're just all that, you can't possibly take them all into account, I guess what I'm trying to say. We just try to kind of look at what people have expressed interest in the past, use that as an average. And it's like that for every line item. I'm not saying that we're treating this one any different, it's just, you know, you get to different, police cutters, you know, Scott might say, well, I've got 15 cars, so we're gonna budget for 15 new cars. Well, we don't need 15 new cars at once, you know, you need a couple each year. So it's kind of like that with every item. You just try to estimate what you think based on historic usage has been. So it's not like I said, if you guys find other trainings you're interested in, that these small budget adjustments are not a big deal. They're not gonna have any impact, you know, $3,000 on our total fund balance of what Auditor just said, $1 million. I don't know the exact number, but it's not gonna have hardly any impact on it. And historically, a lot of times we would just wait until the end of the year to do a mass budget amendment vote. That seems a little simpler, but in reality, you're not really supposed to do that. If you know that you're gonna go over, you're supposed to kind of address it at that time. So that's why we have these different, so just so, if that makes some clarification. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councilwoman.
In the past, when we went to different things, they were usually in Lansing, they weren't in Grand Rapids, so it wasn't a problem. So you didn't spend overnight, you came back home. We paid our own mileage, but they would pay for us to get, the city paid for us to get into the meeting and what needed to be done there. And I just really feel, I learned a lot from the ones that I went to, and I'm sure this one is gonna be good too, because some kind of way, somebody's got to They're gonna talk about marijuana again, I know, because everything is about marijuana, but I wanna know what they're gonna be doing now, because the last one I went to was just when they were getting ready to legalize marijuana. And the guy who was over the whole Michigan program, he was there to talk to you about it. There was a guy that was there at one that was from, Oklahoma City when they had the Oklahoma bomb. And he was talking about the people who had moved out of the city and how they were getting people to move back in. Housing is the thing now, and I'm sure they're gonna be talking about that too. So these things are necessary for helping you with your community and your problems and things, as far as I see.
City Clerk Weaver.
Councilmember Williamson,
Yeah.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Liddell,
Yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Discussion on our chapter 66 solid waste section. Nope, sorry, parking enforcement. So. Yes, Councilman.
I think, Deputy Chief Kern was in your presentation, so if council okay, we can skip over this. I think that'll address any parking and parking concerns.
You good with that?
I'm good with it.
Right. Are we gonna?
Don't we have to do
We
this all?
start one solid waste and then. Okay. Discussion on our solid waste section. Is Chief Kip gonna talk on this one? Okay.
On what?
Solid waste section.
The ordinance to advance solid waste. So we received complaints on our Granger, residents leaving their trash bins at the curb, well after they have been, picked up. And when reviewing the ordinance, there's not a time period, an exact time frame on when they need to be, taken back up to their homes. We're just looking, to possibly limit that or make some changes.
Yes, sir. Colin.
So I had a conversation with the chief about this. I mean, what I have seen in my experience, other municipalities do, because I come over to other municipalities, is generally they'll have a provision that says that the refuse container can be placed at the road no more than 24 hours before the pickup, to the scheduled pickup date, and has to be brought back in no later than 24 hours after your scheduled pickup date. And it's a civil infraction if you fail to follow that.
Currently, we have an ordinance that says it can't be left out at the curb, but we have to give a 7-day notice. When we give the 7-day notice, well, we move back up to the curb again. So it's kind of hard to enforce that ordinance without some type of time frame in that. And so that's what I was looking at, is trying to find some type of time frame that we could enforce. And we do get a lot of complaints about the curb, them being left at the curb, so.
So is this something that we have to look at amending an ordinance to deal with this type of situation? Yes. Councilman.
Is this, are these resident complaints, is Ranger complaining, what's like, who's complaining?
Residents.
I mean, 'cause we have, I mean, just for my time as council, with, Councilmember Clark, we've talked about a lot of enforcement issues of like more serious nature, like enforcing code for actual structures that people are living in versus some of these other things. So I'm just like, well, I guess if we're overwhelmed with complaints, I guess we need to do something. But I just want to point out that we're talking about trash cans by the side of the road that get picked up every 7 days, and we haven't been as serious about landlord and tenant relationships and people living in structures that aren't safe. So I'll support moving forward this ordinance and kind of do it, especially if the chief and the city manager want to move forward with it. And I think this is small beans compared to some of the structures in town that are unsafe for people to live in, that we seemingly can't do anything about, but need to do something going forward. So that's what I'll say about that.
Questions or comments? So we're just gonna look at creating an amendment.
Yeah, I'll talk to the chief and the city manager, and we'll put together a draft or ordinance for discussion and possibly first reading in a future meeting. It should be a fairly simple tweak to the existing ordinance.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Deputy Chief, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I kind of threw this at you at the last minute. It's kind of throwing me at the last minute.
So I'm gonna try to bring you up to speed as simple and as easy as I possibly can. So if you have questions, please just stop me, tell me to back up and explain it. Right now, currently, how we issue a parking ticket is it is so old school. We actually went away from computer program to writing it by hand. Come Monday morning, like today, Carisha has to deal with a couple hundred tickets that we write over the weekend. She'll literally take those couple hundred tickets, scan them in, and then if someone comes in to pay the parking ticket, she'll try to look it up in a PDF of a couple hundred tickets. And some of the officers, including myself, will write like a doctor, and there have been so many tickets that will go back because they can't read the license plate, the make of the car, the location. It's horrible. The reason we went back to writing parking tickets by hand is because the computer program we did have was an in-house program that we created on our own, and it only worked for so long because it was a Microsoft Access. Well, after a while, Microsoft was like, you guys kind of need to make it to 2010. So we went back to handwriting parking tickets. The problem is not only just a couple hundred tickets, we are losing a lot of money and a lot of tickets are going unpaid. To kind of give you a rough estimate, I've been working with different parking ticket vendors throughout the state and getting with other municipalities, Battle Creek, Lansing, Kalamazoo, to try to see how they're doing it and what they do. We collect roughly about 50% of the parking tickets that we write. We write an average for the last 2 years, about 1,600 tickets a year. And we're only getting 50% of them paid. The other thing is tracking of parking tickets. We have no way to track if we have somebody that constantly is a problem for us, other than the neighbors calling us to complain. Why aren't you doing something? This person's been parked here for 5 days. All I ever see is tickets. So we'll go back through and look and we'll have to find the tickets. Oh, you know what? They're right. It's been 5 days that this person's got a ticket after ticket after ticket. What I've done is I've gotten with different parking ticket vendors to try to see what is the best way to work. And so what we've come up with is this company called Tyler Technologies. And not only will they do parking enforcement for us, they'll also do code enforcement, where they'll write an electronic citation and the person can pay online. And they'll also do our vehicle impound sheets. So how it'll work is I'll write a parking ticket. The mayor parks in a no parking area. I write her a ticket. Instead of doing it the old school way of handwriting it, I'll just simply type in her license plate. Dispatch or the lien information network will then put it into a parking ticket automatically, so you don't have to worry about my writing. I'll issue the ticket off of our new printer. So it's electronic, it's a new ticket that's in print instead of someone's writing. And once let's say I write it and I find out Mayor Snyder has 5 unpaid parking tickets, it'll automatically alert me to that. Which then we can either impound the car, put a boot on the car, whatever our ordinance or our policies allow. Right now, we have no way of tracking that. So Mayor comes out, sees her ticket, and can either pay it one of 3 ways. She can either go to the website on the ticket, which would be the city's website, which would then allow the person to go to click a button and it would take them to their portal, just pay it. Or they can scan the QR code that's on it with their cell phone. It automatically brings it up into a secure platform where they can pay it right then and there. This company then takes that payment and can upload it into our accounting software, BS&A, automatically to show that the parking ticket's been paid. Or they can come right down to City Hall. We'll have a separate credit card reader. They can turn and pay right then and there with a credit card. So it's better than coming down the way we've been doing it. The other thing too is that this company also does code enforcement. For this price, it's roughly $40,700 is the initial cost. After that, you're looking at just over $6,000 a year for parking ticket enforcement, for code enforcement, and for our vehicle impound sheets. The other company, the next cheapest, was $15,000 a year, just for parking. So with that, we'll be able to start tracking everything. If somebody is in City Hall, they want to come and pay a ticket, they can automatically pull up the person's license plate and see that they have 5 other unpaid tickets. The person themselves that gets the ticket can automatically see that, oh, I have 5 other tickets I need to pay. I didn't know this. We can get monthly reports, weekly reports, and everything else. The only cost I do not know about is BS&A. They have to create a secure link to Tyler Technologies to receive the payments in. They can do that because they do it for other municipalities in the state that also use BS&A. But each municipality is different. For example, the city of Dearborn uses Tyler Technologies. They write $1.4 million a year in parking tickets. So their cost, I can't ask them, hey, what did it cost you to do this? When you do a huge volume of tickets to our 1,600. So it's gonna cost us $40,000 to start, to take care of 3 different programs, then $6,000 a year after that. It might be a couple grand here or there after this.
So we're about 1,600 a year.
We're at about 1,600 a year, yes.
And they're $20 a piece, correct?
Generally, yes.
So if we were able to collect on 1,600 tickets in a year at $20, that's $32,000 a year.
Yes, the last couple of years, we only brought in about
So
15,000.
it's almost 6 times what this would actually cost to implement in a year.
Yeah.
Just on parking tickets.
Just on parking tickets alone, has nothing to do with code enforcement.
Yeah, and the financial end of it, I can explain. The $6,000 a year, I figured we could easily make up in parking ticket revenue by actually getting the money for the parking tickets that we are writing. Currently, we've gone the entire year without 3 public safety officers, which we have about 10%, we're about 10% down in our salary and wages line item, which is roughly $108,000 at this point. So there's money that we haven't spent this year in salary and wages that is available to pay the initial cost. This is why I told Deputy Chief Kern, hey, who's been bugging me for this for 2 years now, that we might actually have some money that we could do this with right now. So that's why we decided to bring it forward right now.
So this $40,000, would that include the tools needed, like the?
Yes, we would get 2 handheld PDAs and then 3 licenses for 3 different smartphones that would have this program on it. 3 brand new printers for our mainstream cars. If we wanted to add additional printer, that could be roughly about $800 to add into a 4th patrol car. And there, like I said, in talking with the sales rep, depending on how it's tailored for the city, we might have a $1,600 credit here, because we might not need this program in it, but then we might have to spend $800 over here. So it's, the initial cost is $40,000, but it might be 42 at the end of the day, it might be 39 at the end of the day. So I a little bit of a ballpark. It just depends on how well everything works out with BS&A, what we need for equipment.
How would that work since some of our code enforcement is done through safe bill? How would that work with their?
They would take all of our city ordinances and load it in for violations that our code enforcement officer currently uses right now. So if he was to issue a ticket for trash cans or grass, trash in the yard, something like that, that would be built into where he could just issue the ticket and the fine for that.
The 2 handhelds can be in them.
We'll have 3 smartphones as well that can have it, so a total of 5.
We have 3 phone patrol cars currently. We're just gonna upgrade those to smartphones so they're able to use the ticket program for them.
And then you said the printers go actually in the patrol car?
We currently have printers in the patrol cars now. They're a little older, and so we're trying to upgrade as we get new cars. We're trying to upgrade the printers as well. This would be a higher quality printer that would be right off the bat going into the 3 main cars that are on the road 24/7.
When it comes to issuing a ticket for like the garbage vehicles, how does that ticket get issued? You don't have like license plate, you do address or?
Yeah, they would just fill in the blanks, whatever the fields would be, what they currently have now. And they would, instead of handwriting it in, it would be a printer that they'd have right there in their car. That prints out like a 4-inch ticket, a 4-inch white ticket, and they would just print that out and hand it to the homeowner.
And if the homeowner's not there, does it go to mailbox, what do you do with it?
It mails it, I'm probably.
Yeah, certified mail.
Do we have questions?
Are we being asked to approve this tonight?
I believe so, right?
Alright. We still, we may have just done this a little backwards and move to approve it at the beginning, but. I'm not the mayor pro tem, so I was. Move to approve the new parking program presented by Chief Executive Chief Kern.
City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Clark. Yes. Reed. Yes. Lawler.
Yes.
Lanu.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
And Mayor Snyder.
Yes. City Manager report? Councilor Williamson?
So we just approved the new software for parking tickets. And we know that there's kind of a backlog of unpaid tickets. I'd like a recommendation from public safety on what to do about all of that. Are we gonna sift through them and put them in the new system? Are we going to expunge them and start fresh? I think we need to have a plan for that. As we institute a more aggressive ticketing system. So I'd like to hear from the chief and deputy chief, both they would propose that we do about all of the ones that are in paper form and in PDFs and all of that.
I would like to put the discussion and approval of the outdoor equipment that we need for the Department of Public Services. Acquisition of equipment that we need.
Councilor Clark?
I'd like to have a discussion about, I know there's a future plan about McIntosh Park, and someone had brought to my attention, with those plans, have we checked it because of it being a landfill area, to make sure that we don't put something in place and spend all that money and then stuff started sinking because of the area. So that's something we need to look at before we
Wanna update on
get too far in there.
The environmental report or?
Yeah. Because it used to be that.
Any other agenda items? Public comments, anybody in chamber that would like to speak? They're welcome to come up, we have 3 minutes to state your name and address.
Garrett Brown, 1016 South Superior, just gonna repeat that, so I initially sent that email to my council member, I think she might be on vacation. But anyone on the council can ask the manager, the attorney about that, but I just wanted to know clarification about if a street's removed, what's the process for that? Does it have to go through the council? Because I didn't get that information. And then the other thing, there's discussion about the budget amendment in the ML conferences. So every year MML does like a convention, a spring conference. And the spring conference is usually, capital conference is usually in Lansing. So that might be what Councilmember Reed is talking about. But when we would do the budget, because council has stipends and maybe given year there'll be different trainings, what we would do is we budget, historically, we might budget for like 3 council members to go to a conference. And normally those might be people who were kind of new to council because of the different training sessions and stuff like that. So people who were senior on council didn't go. So historically, we didn't budget for the entire council to go, but that's within the council's decision about how they want to spend the money to do that. So, but yeah, somebody can give me an answer about the street removal and does it have to go through council? I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Sheridan, 19 North Avenue. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Second of all, I seem like I remember something about Brandon Mauer said at that one council meeting that the city would have, it would be easy for the city to mark off whatever they wanted to in parking, no parking, totally up to the city. MDOT didn't really care if that's any help to you. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, city manager, talking wheels.
I guess I should have said the question of this council comments.
We haven't gotten there
But
yet.
I heard nothing yet. Oh,
We haven't gotten there yet.
Doing an agenda on that?
Okay, yep, city manager report.
So a copy of my report was included in the packet. The fifth progress meeting for the first, second, third mile and Carmel Streets was held on Wednesday, August 4th. That project continues to move forward. The minutes are attached for your reference. The Albion First Service Agreement update at the May 6th EDC meeting, EDC appointed Jerome Harvey and Dr. Raeder Barclay to represent the EDC in the Albion First Partnership Work Group. At that time, Dr. Barclay and Mr. Harvey, they wanted to gather together and just discuss amongst themselves and bring themselves up to speed on what previous discussions. They've had the opportunity to do that. So I've reached out to the EDC, DDA, and Chamber, the Service Partnership Work Group to restart the conversation. The Chamber, they had their board meeting last Monday, August 9th, and at this time, the Chamber is no longer interested in continuing with the conversation. The DDA met last Wednesday, August 11th, and their board voted to continue with the conversation. So I will be reaching out to the work group that will now contain the EDC, the city, and then the DDA to restart that conversation to see if there's a possibility that the DDA and EDC could work closely together to enhance some of the economic developments, community developments here in our in town. To speak on Mr. Brown's question, prior to the removal of the Perry and Jackson Street, we had a meeting with the college, and both when talking prior administration at the college level and city level, the city vacated both streets to the college to where they are owners of that. So they are technically the owners of those streets. So it did not require council approval to remove the roadways. It required different permits from our planning and zoning department, as well as our public services department. The college, they did submit those permits to move forward with the projects. They have been vetted by both of our department heads so that they were able to move forward with removing of those streets. The Oswego and the section of Oswego between Perry, they are not the, they do not have ownership of that. So they, to remove that, it would require council to vacate that, or if they would like to become the sole ownership, or they would have to, there's other process that they would have to take, which would require council approval. However, since it was already vacated by previous administrations, that did not require level of approval at this level, but it has been vetted by both internal departments, and all requirements have been met.
Good. Yep. Right. Councilmember Kevin.
okay. I know that there are people watching me, so I've got to say this. I got heard from several of the people that are in my precinct and that have dealt with city government before, who thought that it was very disrespectful that the council did not show up everybody to take a seat in Mayor Joe's, I'm sorry I have to say this in front of you, but they just felt that because he had been a previous mayor for so long, that it should have been more respect shown, other than just having the commemoration.
That's really.
Excuse me, I offer my sincere condolences, and unfortunately I was out of the state at that time. My council member comment was related to the city manager evaluation. That's been on my radar since it was brought on the agenda. It was mentioned that we would be discussing that in August. And at the last meeting, we were told that we would receive the evaluation so that we could begin that process. And when I was reviewing the documentation that was provided from the agenda item, it said that we would have to receive that 30 days in advance of when it is due. And my understanding is that it's due September 15th.
And that's, I don't have that form, I'm sorry, and with Jill being off 2 weeks, I didn't want to burden her requesting that form, so we will make sure that that gets sent out first thing tomorrow, morning, that you all have that.
Thank you.
Councilman Wilson.
My comment tonight has to do with the ongoing pandemic in Cobb County and the county health department not taking significant action and requiring masking for return to school plans unless something's changed in the last couple of hours. As of right now, public schools are not requiring the county to have masking indoors, whether you're vaccinated or not. Counties around Michigan and school districts around Michigan are moving at light speed to get that in order before the start of school. And so I just want to encourage my fellow council members, encourage citizens to reach out to your local school board members. I believe we have 6 to 8 different school districts that serve the children of Albion. We need to remember that children under the age of 12 cannot be vaccinated. As the Delta variant and coronavirus continue to infect people and are on significant upward trajectories in the state and around the country, we are about to send our children back to school and they are not able to be vaccinated. And so I just want to encourage everybody to reach out to their school board members and encourage the school districts to require masking in schools, a safety protocol for all. I don't view this as a political or partisan issue. I view this as an issue for safety and health and well-being for our students and families. And I want everyone to use every ounce of power to encourage the school boards to take action, even if the county health department doesn't. I want to resist the argument that it's the county's job on health. If your school has a school nurse, you do care about the health of your kids. We put locks on doors so that gunmen can't come into school buildings. I want to encourage everyone to reach out. This is going to be a problem in our local schools. It's going to get kids and families very sick. It's going to increase the amount of breakthrough cases in our county. And we all have a platform up here. While we may not be school board members, we certainly serve our public and represent our people. And I just encourage everyone to reach out respectfully, as I have, to all of our school board members around the county that serve our children. It's going to be very sad if we start seeing large increases in children being sick and or being hospitalized. So please keep an eye on that. Please reach out, please be vocal. They're not going to do it unless we say something and force their hand. And so that's what I want to take my time tonight as next week school starts. And I know that there are a lot of kids who are excited for kindergarten, getting back into the classroom. We know that school is where kids belong. Masks do not interfere with education in the building. So again, thank you for allowing me to share that message with you during my council member comments.
Any other comments? All right, do I have a motion to excuse Mayor Pro Tem Jackson?
So moved.
Okay.
Councilmember Lemieux,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
City Clerk Domingo?
Councilmember Clark. Yes. Reed. Lemieux,
Yes.
Williamson,
yes.
and Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Motion adjourned 9:29 p.m.